Mary and I voted
Not
no, but we can't remember.
I changed
I'm
the system.
pretty sure.
Okay, sure. Everyone, just want to welcome everyone. I'm going to call this April 11th, 2023 Moab Area Traffic Council Advisory Board meeting to and we'd like to go around.
Oh, sorry, I have the mute thing. Go deep into a hole of terrifying.
Pause.
Well, this has to. All right, we're listening to our own
Okay.
live stream. Is what
All
was
right.
happening there.
Let's go around next to introduce everyone. My name is Jenny Gleason. I'm the chair.
I, yeah, sure. I'm August Grant, Economic Development Director for the county.
You want to just go around?
Sure.
No, of course, she's a member of the board, aren't you?
No, it's from the other board. People who are here, we'll start with the people who are board members, and then if people speak for whatever reason, we'll go from there.
Kayla Jones, Moab City Council liaison, not a board member.
Well, kind of a board member.
Not a voting member.
Not a board member, but not a voting member. And we count on
Ex officio.
quorum, do we? Do we count on quorum or just, no?
No.
No, but we have one.
Mary McGann, liaison for the commission.
Sharon Kinsley, board member.
Brian Hunting is board member.
Lacey Shumway, board member. Roy McFarland, board member.
You want us to continue?
Sure, we might as well, everybody in the room.
Forrest Rogers, Moab Museum Economic Development Advisory Board.
Melissa Staff, Economic Development Assistant Marketing Director.
Robert Rabiria, Travel Council.
Deacon Messenger Moab, Monument Valley Film Commissioner.
Steve, you want to say who you are?
I'm Steve with the Friends of Arches and Canyon Parks. I'm attending the Fly in the Wall.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Are you online?
Oh, Alex, do you want to go next?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, my name is Alex Borchevsky and I'm a board member.
Thank you,
Rebecca Monso, and I am a board member as well.
Next, Mark.
Oh, was that Mark?
Yeah, it was a Mark.
My apologies. I want to double check. Mark Steven out with Love Communications. Good to see you all.
Oh, that's okay. Perfect. That was everyone.
Yeah, my colleague Hannah will be joining me shortly. Hannah Saunders, also with Love Communications. So I'll just pre-introduce her.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest, disclosures, ex parte communication? And any citizens to be heard? And presentations, leave it later, as we having right now. And then first up is the approval of a few meeting minutes. We have April or January 10th, February
We don't
4th.
have January. We already.
Oh, yeah, you said that in the email. February 14th and March 14th, 2023. They have approval.
I make a motion that we approve the February 14th minutes
You know both.
and the March 14th minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Alex, are you in favor? Alex, are you in favor? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, and then next we're gonna try to keep it to about a minute each for board member reports. I will start and also keep track of time. No.
I am in favor.
We got your vote, Alex. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank
That's aye.
you.
Yep.
Okay. Just report on Red Tail. March, we were really down, 70% in helicopter and
Right.
almost 50% in scenic airplane flights. So that wasn't good. We tried to chalk up to like weather, Salt Lake, people not coming down. But not awesome news in Red Tail world. Anything better?
I don't have anything better. Unfortunately, people don't particularly want to go and be in an open air vehicle when it's a high of 40. And other hotels that I have spoken with, I don't speak for the masses, they have said that they couldn't pay the light bill until the week Jeep Safari came, and they were very grateful for Jeep Safari to have some bookings, because for the winter, they have not even been able to meet minimum expenses.
So that's kind of what I'm hearing from a lot of businesses as well. We've gotten a lot of calls lately just about business softening and or whether not picking up like they thought it should. I haven't heard about Jeep. I was out of town for Jeep Safari, so I'm hoping that that went well. And yeah. And then as far as chamber, we have a new staff member, and we're just kind of getting back on top of everything. And we've got our golf tournament coming up in June. So if you have any interest or know anybody that wants to participate, the proceeds for that go to scholarships for seniors. So yeah.
Out of Red Cliffs, I mean, we were impacted by weather just like everybody else. We finished March fine. Jeep Safari Week was great. Easter was really good for us. We did just get notification from one of our big tour bus companies, TAP Tours, which is big business for us, that they've had to cancel all of their tours through the end of May because the Grand Canyon North Rim is closed to all tours due to high water levels. So for us, that's an impact of 500 room nights. So I can only imagine what that's doing to other places as well. So.
And sorry, I forgot one thing. We have a chamber chat on Arch's timed entry tomorrow night at 5:30 as well. And we'll have a chance to talk to Cohen about, and I think NPS will be there, but I'm not exactly sure. UTO will be there as well. So sorry.
No, that's fine. One other thing I just want to throw out there, we are in discussion. Last year, we had Good Day Utah come down and do a live remote to kind of promote summer business in Moab. We hosted them. We're going to redo that this year. So we'll be meeting with the Good Day Utah people next week. If any businesses are interested in hosting a segment or interested in being on the production, please shoot me or August or Melissa, actually, is
Don't shoot me an email.
yeah, even though she'll be in Canada, she'll be replying. Yeah, we're trying to get that planned and try to get a nice, good summer fish for us. So that's coming up.
Okay, yes, visitation at the mixed been down also, pretty much due to weather, and skiing's been so good. You know, years when skiing isn't good, and then we're really busy. We did notice during Jeep Safari a lot more families down here, and I visited with quite a few of them, and it seemed to me like most of them were from northern Utah, and I think the families were tired of the snow, so they came down here for their spring break, because it was the northern Utah schools spring break at the same time ours was. June 15th is our 30-year anniversary at the MIC, and we are planning we're in the pre-planning of some events to happen at the MIC that day, but we are going to partner with the chamber and have a ribbon cutting and a kind of dedication for the MIC after 30 years. And then just on a side note, there are no more recycle bins at the MIC. Apparently, when you call and say, hey, how come nothing's been being dumped, they find out that nobody's been paying for those. So all we have is our one garbage dumpster now there, so please don't send visitors there to dump stuff. We thought everything was all included on our garbage bill, but it's not, it's all separate. So we're still working the logistics out on that, but basically, the only thing we used on that was the cardboard dumpster, and we don't need it for our business because we can send it back to the warehouse and they can put it in the one we pay for already. So as of right now, there is no recycle bins or cardboard dumpster. So that's that.
Alex, do you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, the spring has been not too bad for us. It's been good business. It's not like not crazy busy, but it's not bad either. We've got good response from the community, good response from tourists. I would say our numbers are on, on par from last year, even after having raised prices. And generally, good reservations and whatnot, good customer flow. Given that, it's a cold winter and, weren't able to open the patio or even seat the patio all of March, even though at 98 Center, even though I built it to be ready for March, and there was just, never a warm enough day to have that open and going. So, I'm sure that everybody, I've definitely heard around town that everybody is quite a bit down from, last year and previous Marches where it's been a lot warmer. But I think, 10 years ago, this was really typical weather to have cold up until the end of March. And I think we've all just gotten used to like really warm spring, but now it's, but I've also known that, the ski season really dictates what kind of business Moab sees in the springtime. So I'm definitely hopeful that with the upcoming nice warm weather, people are going to be stoked to get out and about. I think April and spring breaks are going to be much better for us. I definitely noticed a lot of families too. A lot more families this year milling about in Jeep Week, and Jeep Week just again didn't really seem nearly as busy as I've a few years ago and pre-COVID. But it's okay. I think that everybody is probably all right with that. It wasn't too crazy, but we're still just hopeful that April and June really bring people down to town, and when the water starts flowing in the river, that'll also bring a whole nother crowd and tourists as well. So that's my report.
Thanks, Alex. Rebecca, do you want to go next?
Thank you.
Sure. So both of the hotels, Hampton and Homewood, kind of saw a little bit more soft of a beginning of the year leading up to Jeep Safari, but we had a phenomenal week for Jeep Safari. We had really high ADRs, occupancy was really high. So it was a great week for us there. And we're starting to see it dip down a little bit again, a little bit slower than anticipated for April.
Okay.
All I got.
Thank you.
I can provide a brief update on people who want to really touch on.
Yes.
So we'll talk more about kind of where we're at in the data process in a little bit. Also, I have a more robust, this is where my report of here's how occupancy and all the other numbers are looking last month. I like this notion of each anecdotal and touch point within the community, and then here's what the aggregates look like. So that's where that's going to end up in the future. Two questions that Jenny wanted me to follow up on. We sent out an email about an opportunity to pursue a project with EDA.com to do some OHV trail video projects. Basically, we decided to defer to the next application period, which is later this summer. They're really trying to get it in within like basically 3 days of letting us know. I think someone else that they were working with pulled out, and they were trying to see if they could make it happen at the last minute. I think we're still excited about the concept, but wanted to make sure that we had all our ducks in a row before going after grant money and letters of support and all that. So that's where that went. And then kind of follow up on some of the billboard commentary. As staff and at the Responsible Recreation Committee meeting, decided to kind of go forward with some of the creative budget that we have with Love Communications to basically create mock-ups of the same messaging we're going for, but make it visually more aligned with the rest of our campaigns that are in market at the moment. And so we'll be moving forward with them shortly on that.
Is it not what we voted on? Is it the one that we sent out and everyone voted? The billboards? Remember?
We said, we got commentary and
Yeah.
feedback. Yeah, so all that feedback was incorporated into that process. And so basically we're taking a pivot from the creative direction that was going and having Love put the creative together. So the messaging is going to be taking all of the commentary we received for the last several months, but just a different visual.
Oh, so it's a new visual.
Yeah. So it'll be different. It'll be a different artist.
Oh,
basically.
okay. Got it.
Yeah. So we're gonna obviously pay the artist who's done the work up to this point.
Okay.
But a slight pivot, but continuing to move forward to making sure that we have that good kind of educational messaging. I think one of the best things that I think we were all concerned about was this notion of kind of riling up an already riled up topic area. And Jason Taylor on the Responsible Recreation Committee did a really good job of, he actually went and spoke with the folks at Epic 4x4 and said, hey, if this billboard above your business is going to change with this type of messaging, like how do you feel about that? What do you want to see? We got a really good response. So feeling like I'm a little less concerned about like poking the bear in that kind of a context, so long as we ensure that there's good communication of what that visual and message looks like, and that the county commission and the traffic council and businesses think about it, but also trying to move a little quicker because design by committee last time it's been 8 months talking about this project. So that's the update there. Yeah.
Thank you. Next up is the Go West Summit and ITA conference.
Yeah, Melissa, do you want to come up?
Where should I sit?
Maybe right there. I'll pull up your report here.
Well, so February was really an amazing month for me. So my first trade show, it was the IITA, so that was the International Inbound Travel Association. The day were between February 12 and February 15. The location was San Diego, California. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't too good at that time, so we couldn't enjoy the beach. My favorite session about was the brand USA. They were talking about the international market. So since November 2021, they opened the borders, and in June 2022, the testing for the COVID, they stopped that. So international markets are coming back to USA. So we are focused very strong to bring that back. Even you guys can see in the report, I put that the second US Secretary of Commerce, Gina, on behalf of the Tourism Policy Consultant, like the new National Travel and Tourism Strategy in June 2022. You can pass the next one. Yes. So in 2022, no recover 100%. So the recovery is going to be really slow. It's in a slower pace right now. But my focus for 2023, and we have a good conversation also with the Utah Office of Tourism, and our focus is Canada, Mexico, UK, Germany, and the Indian market. So next. So we have 2 days of the marketplace, and I was talking with 51 people between tour operator, bus operator, journalists, government officials. So it was really exhausted to talk with a lot of people, but that's part of my job. Yeah, they were having a lot of questions about MOA, about what's going on with the Arches Time Entry, what's going on with the bus, what's going on with if we have new restaurants, new hotels, new outfitters. And then the next day they asked me for an international interview. So MOA Area Travel Council was selected for this interview. And this is the 4 questions that they asked me, because it's important sometimes to show who is MOA to the international market. And the next one. So Go West. Go West is kind of like the mini IPW. It's the same organization, but they are focused on the American West tourism product. Jenny went last year. We have a lot of work last year in Vernon, and this year was in Anchorage, Alaska. So super cold for me. So, and I went with Forrest. So we went from February 27 to March 2nd. And I was sharing my appointments with Forrest. We have at least, how many appointments do we have, Forrest? It was like 2 days, probably like more than 90 people we talked. So I shared my time with Forrest. Forrest paid a half of the trip too. And I was talking about MOA in general, and Forrest was talking about the Moab Museum, so we combine that together. What we can learn from this information that they provide to us is, I know that the graphics are tiny, but I can say that the reason for not traveling to the USA in the next 12 months is because they want to visit other country. The dollar is too strong, so the currency it changed, and they are saving money for other trips and need to plan well. And then you guys can see in the other graphic, the current, that one. The current state of visitation for December 2022, Canada and Mexico. They were the 70%. And then Europe, and if we go to overseas, Indian market, again, the Indian market is coming so powerful to USA. Yeah, you can pass to the other one too. And then VC arrived from North America. So it's Canada and Mexico, but we can see that Mexico, it's a potential visitor for us. So this is a new markets that we are gonna be focused on. Next year, the Utah Office of Tourism is proposing for me to go to New Mexico as a sales mission. And then Forest Cast from Europe, as you guys can see, Netherlands. So last year I went to a sales mission to the Netherlands and Amsterdam. They love Moab. They love Moab because it's a sustainable place. They like the biking, the mountain biking, they like the trails. Plus, this June, I'm bringing a fun tour that she promote the travel for disabled people. They're gonna stay at the Homewood Suite, St. Peter Rebecca. She offered me a good deal, so they're coming this June and promote all the accessible hotels that we have, all the trails, how to go to the national park. So this would be a great thing to focus on. And then from Asia and Oceania, we have again India. So India is very, very strong, and this is a new market too for Moab. And they invite me also to the next year sales mission from the Utah Office of Tourism. And what's today's challenges? This is really important. We have all the climate emergency, exclusion and inequity, workforce shortage. But I want to be focused on the time are changing. So right now, Brand USA is focused to promote the rural towns. So this is a platform for us. So it's gonna use use more as to promote more as much as we can. And then again, they say that our Asia travel is India. So I was in my box last year. I didn't want to promote India. I have two bad experience last year with India with the farms. So I decided not to promote the Indian market, but then looking at other counties and talking with the Utah Office of Tourism, I understand that we need to bring the Indians. And my thing is like, I was thinking the Indians are kind of like the Latin culture. We like more parties, we like more bars, clubs, all the things, but they show me that the Indian and also the Mexican market, they are similar. We're gonna target just the high-end people who wants to do exclusive activities, and Moab can serve that. We can skip that one. And then this is again the marketplace. Oh, so we have 2 days of forest. We talk for 2 days with 60 appointments. Same tour operator, bus operator, journalist, but this is the Go West, so they're more focused on the Go West side. And just scroll down a little bit. This is our merchandising. I didn't bring any big merchandising because our meeting, it was just 5 minutes, no, 12 minutes, so it was really fast, and they already have all our material, so if you scroll at the end, this is all the material that I provide. So like a little summary of what Moab offer, and then a big input about Arches National Park, because this is really important. They were asking me a lot, the bus, the Moab area transit, they were asking me, at that time I didn't have any information. So then when I come back and I recap all information, I send an email blast to all the tour operators. And they were so happy about this because a lot of people that are staying on the area or coming with a Rocky Mountain area, they don't have transportation. So the bus is really helpful. I used the bus the other day from my house to the Banco house too. I love it. So I start recommending the bus. Working with the hotels. And if you want me to start talking about the next item,
Sure.
so.
Maybe if you have any questions,
Oh,
you want
you
to
guys have
go
any
through the
questions?
next piece or?
What was the hardest part for you?
The weather. Yeah, it was freaking cold. I mean, Forrest made me walk and I was Forrest, I don't wanna walk. Forrest said, you need to walk. So,
I have a question about FAM tours in general, but I don't know if now's the best time or if there's some.
I think you might as well ask it and then we can either pin it for later or,
Okay, so as far as FAM tours go.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful for Moab businesses? I mean, how do you put those together? Is it something that we could get Moab businesses to offer up what they have and then you can kind of like pick what's good for what tour, or you already kind of have your
so
where they go
this
and what
is,
they do? Or?
this is the process. So the youth office of tourists select a fun tour.
Mm.
And then they asked me, hey, Melissa, can you help us to do an itinerary? So I help to do the itinerary and how many days they can stay. And then the third process is, Melissa, can you pay for that? That's the third process. So then I need to figure out, if Son of Peter wants to help me with that, so hotel wants to give me that. And that's the third process, and that's the most difficult for me because I wish I can provide the best.
well, we do have a small budget. that also-
Yeah.
Well, and also you should let us help because I think there's businesses that would gladly offer that up.
Mhm.
So we just need to like get the message out. So let's work together that way. And
Okay.
yeah.
Is there a legal challenge? There at one point, many years ago, was a challenge with favoring certain businesses that
Yes.
were willing to do these tours for
Yes,
free.
that's one of the challenge for me because I'm a person that would like to promote all the businesses.
Yeah.
And that's part of my job, but it's so difficult, like I can reach hotels and they cannot offer a discount for me, so I'm going with a hotel that is gonna help me, and then the hotel will say, hey, Melissa, why you didn't promote my hotel, what they are, I said, well, you didn't help me, so it's a challenge, it's not easy, but I'm so open for new ideas, or if someone wants to help.
I think one thing we've talked about is in our email communications with our stakeholders, doing a, on a monthly basis, fan tour opportunity, these office tours, and trying to do this kind of thing. And kind of just like make sure everybody's aware of it in a kind of a universally accessible way. And just to start there as a way to just make sure everybody is aware and has an opportunity and, can sign up in that way.
Like I have a list of hotels.
Yeah.
When I know that fund is coming, I send an email to those hotels, hey, I don't know, Lacey is coming, are you guys wants to offer something to Lacey?
Right.
Maybe just one or two answer my emails.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm just gonna, am I allowed to speak?
I guess Jenny.
Yes.
technically.
Please.
The film commission does have thoughts of FAM tours of a similar nature, but related to bringing in people who want to see this area as a filmmaking opportunity. But it would require a lot of the same stuff that, along the same lines. So it's something that as the future progresses, that we would love to have the same
Yeah.
conversation about, but.
Yeah, keep me in the loop. We can see. if we're-
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, I have a fan from UK. They were high-end fans. They were working from BBC, Time from UK, and other ones at big brands, newspapers. They were high-end. They were so amazing. It's very, I don't know how to say, like very blessing for me to work with this kind of companies because I know that they don't wanna promote more to whatever, but they're gonna promote in a sustainable way for the high end. They're gonna come in a short period, but they're gonna spend the money. So yeah.
I think the last fan tour thought to put in your brains collectively is, I think, where we're at is a very light fan tour budget that allows us to support as much of what youth officers. Basically, we want to be able to say yes every time the youth officer says, here's an opportunity, because we know they've vetted it. We know it's good journalists. We know it's kind of within their Red Emerald mission, which is relatively aligned with where we're at. I think if there's a future where we're doing more like product development or like really leaning on other types of things, and trying to develop that and get visibility on that, then I think that would be an opportunity for us to put more money into that budget item and develop some of our own concepts. I know we've talked a lot more about how do we get people when the weather's not so good, if we have like indoor arts and culture type amenities and stuff like that. And so then that would be Utah House of Tourism can go out of their way to put that together for us.
Right.
But we could definitely work with them to have contacts. So I think that's a future potential to if we were to fund that at a higher rate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
like it.
And then, the other item is the Arch Cemetery, public outreach program. So me and Robert, we went to, first we sent an email blast to all the businesses that are in our list. Also, we sent to the Moab Chamber, and what we did a couple of weeks ago, we delivered all the cemetery rat cars with the Moab Outdoor Adventure guys. From this material, cemetery information sheet, cemetery rat cards in different language, and also the Moab transit map information, because a lot of hotels, they were requesting that. And if they want to order again, we give some QR codes for that. And the hotel, they were so happy to have information. Few hotels, they have the time entry rat card from last year, so we say, no, you cannot use that. This is the new one. But again, the Moab Area Transit does amazing service. All the hotel love it. They say they stop over there. Their clients ask for the bus, so it's really good. And then also Robert was working on this poster. It's a fun poster board for the Moab Information Center, and also it's gonna be on the airport. And I think if we cross our finger, we can have this for next week.
But yeah, this has the foreign language translations on it.
Yeah. And then we put the downtown locator boards update about also Arches time entry and the Moab Area Transit. And this is we're gonna update this with this billboard on the I-17. Just we're gonna add the Arches reservation required on the corner. And I think this is gonna be next week too.
Is that the official billboard? Has that been decided in?
These are the ones that are already out.
Yeah, so the only change is basically this little corner.
Little corner.
So you're going to leave it the way it is with the exception of the little,
Yeah, so the cost is super minimal,
right?
and allows us to basically get this temporally relevant information out. Eventually, with these, we'll see a redesign. But we want to get these out as soon as possible. And so the folks that do the billboard maintenance for us offer a very, very affordable rate to get these up there. And last year we tried to do kind of the variable messaging signs on the side of the road, which required a UDOT right of way messaging or physical. Like it's much harder to keep up. And this is, no matter what, if you're coming on I-70 either direction, you see that just trying to capture people as many locations as possible.
The one coming from Grand Junction, we just redid that. Was it last year or the year before? Because it got the storm
Yeah.
destroyed it.
Yeah.
It's pretty much brand new.
Yeah, so that was the same message, but
Right.
yeah, not destroyed. The board was fixed.
I'm just gonna throw, because I always have to throw stuff out. Because I believe communicating with our guests, that piece of the puzzle is so critical. Is it possible to consider the optic? Because we have respect, protect, and preserve as our educational message, and that's really strong in a very classy way. If we were to make, instead of recreate responsibly in Moab, screaming at us, maybe if we could cover that part and say, please make a reservation or something in a bigger, I'm just gonna.
No, I think that's a good point.
From Robert question.
Well, I'll even, before we even get there, I'll hold that thought. And if I don't address it by the end of the meeting.
I just want to offer.
No,
Yeah.
I think you're right. And I think I'll just speak to in a little bit where I think that process will happen. We'll have an opportunity to refresh some of those things.
I mean, it might not look as,
And also we send an email blast to the youth and tourism industry about what we are doing here in Moab. Again, we just saying that we are delivering the multilingual time entry records, informations and a video. So they have a video that we can share with everybody and you can download the video. And then Robert make a little numbers over there. So discovermore.com, that time entry page. So we have 47K views just for the Arches time entry reservation, over 10K clicks to recreation.gov from our website. And sponsored time entry emails with Utah.com, no cost. So discovermore.com time entry, 442, recreation.gov, 89, and Utah.com time entry page, 4K. Do you want to add anything, Robert, about that?
No, I think that's pretty complete.
Yeah.
You know, the snipes on the billboards are probably about,
No,
yeah, he said to get them all this week.
great.
Great. Anyone else have any questions or anyone have any questions? Okay, next, we have the update from Love Communications. Mark?
Hi, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, do you mind if I have the ability to share my screen?
Just made it possible for you.
Okay, awesome. And August, I know we are covering a couple different things. I was thinking that I was just going to start with just some high level travel trends, just looking at kind of the overall, ecosystem. Some of it will probably relay what you guys were talking about earlier, just seeing, anecdotally what's happening in the market. Some of the challenges are the same that Melissa spoke to, internationally and domestically, but then that leads us into our Moab summer campaign strategy and that flow chart and kind of our rationale that we're pulling in from those travel trends and those implications of, which channels we're using, what markets we might be speaking to, audience demographics and so forth. Does that feel like a good rhythm? Did you want to say anything prior to that?
No, I'll just give an update on the data kind of projects at the tail end.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna move the screen. So as I pull this up, some of you guys are familiar, but Jonathan and Adam on our team has been putting together travel trends probably for the last 3 years monthly. There's been more of a reason to really understand consumer sentiment and kind of obviously COVID implications, knock on wood, we're moving past those, but obviously now we're still continuing to understand economic implications and how that really changes either destinations that people are choosing to go to, or if they're not going to, why those motivations have shifted and how our messaging can kind of bring to life, some of those benefits that people are seeking, knowing that they're choosing their travel a little bit more strategically this year. And so to the right, these are all of the different kind of partners that we work with, and we aggregate this data across all of these different partners. Obviously, having more data that speaks to the same answer allows us to then look at the trends and then pick out anything that we want to shift from our strategy, right? So Expedia, TripAdvisor, those OTAs, Longwoods, Destination Analyst, Skift, and then Love, we obviously do a lot of our data in-house as well. So just briefly, we're going to go over some reasons for concern. Obviously, we've already spoke to some of those. But obviously, one of the biggest ones is looking at gas prices and how that might change or impact some of our states. So when we're looking at kind of fly markets versus regional markets, gas prices are on the rise again a little bit. I believe there was a slight dip last month that we saw, but they are steadily climbing again. What you'll notice as well is that, at least we're not back to kind of last spring, where we really saw that spike, obviously with the Ukraine war implications having that really fast impact on gas prices. We are a little bit lower, but you are seeing that right around, April 7th last week, we're starting to see that trend line go up a little bit. So in the past 6 months, the question was, of the following have kept you from traveling more than you would have otherwise. Again, all of this data is from either March or April, and so it's very relevant. And overall, you know, what you're seeing is obviously travel is a little too expensive, gas is too expensive, just personal financial reasons, airfare is too expensive, you know, COVID and crowds and more health safety concerns are now a little bit lower, but again, just the overall economic implications per household is allowing people to kind of take a second to figure out, hey, I usually do 3 trips, I'm going to do 1 trip, you know, where is that destination that's going to make the most sense to me? Again, we also want to understand how different audiences and age ranges these implications have. And so what we're looking at here is just listing travel as being too expensive, kind of the majority of those audiences when we break down into millennials, Gen X, and boomers. You know, millennials are feeling it a little bit more. It makes a little sense, right? Boomers are having kind of that opportunity where they've saved and are maybe retiring and have a little bit more liquid cash on hand. The 10% increase, so we have seen a 10% increase in millennials reporting that travel is too expensive. And this is obviously a big deal because millennials represent about 22% of the US population. So we just want to keep a pulse on how we can kind of speak to millennials and offer kind of benefits if that's kind of our main audience. Based on destination analysts, almost 55% of respondents believe that United States is going into an economic recession sometime in the next 6 months. So people are being a little cautious of how and when they're spending their money. Again, we're seeing that same trajectory on SCIF, looking at the probability of a recession and kind of that incline starting from, you know, just last year, January 2022, all the way to this year. Based on destination analysts, again, 30% of travelers feel that now is a good time to spend money on leisure. Again, this is a little bit up month over month. But when we look at last year at this point, around 38% of travelers felt like it was a good time. So when we're looking at year over year, it's close, but it's even a little bit less. Again, when we're looking at people who are canceling due to inflation, broken down by generation. Again, the more impact the millennials feel, the more that they might have that reaction to cancel or delay. So to them, they might be looking at, you know, what are the best offerings that have that flexibility of cancellation or movement or deals. Versus Gen X and boomers, they feel like, hey, we've decided to go on this trip. We want to continue to do so. Almost 44% of travelers agree high travel prices have kept them from traveling in the past month. This is up as well. When we look at, you know, the question of how much do you agree or disagree with the following statements, high travel prices have kept me from traveling in the past month. This allows us to kind of see which months and then based on kind of obviously economic, you know, updates or changes, you know, where we're seeing that shift. This one is from March, and so we are seeing about 44% agree that kind of high travel prices have kept them from traveling the last month. Okay, reasons to be optimistic. We can always find an audience in the travel sector. It's such an important part of our life, and even in, you know, times of economic pain, we always see that people do decide to kind of go for that travel, that wellness kind of break. And so if we can kind of show Moab as that destination and continue to hone in on the right audience and the right market, we're hoping that this summer does have a little bit of a stronger start than what we're seeing in the spring. Something that's interesting, that's new data that we've pulled, is understanding what happens in recessions when it comes to either hotel occupancy or, you know, ADR or RevPAR. A recession in 2023 this year would be the first recession to see RevPAR growth rather than decline. And something that's interesting too, when we're looking at ADRs, you know, when 2020 happened, you know, we were looking, everyone was a little bit worried about kind of the ADR swing of being really high, but then having to go really low. And then the years after that, of those implications of how do we shift and create this right ADR for right now and the future. What's interesting is that in past kind of financial crashes, right, occupancy and ADR have recovered in line with each other, a little bit more correlated. Whereas now what we're seeing, if you're looking at the 2022, is that, occupancy is still, struggling, but similar to what you guys were even saying, but our ADR is still really strong. So the people who are coming or are paying for the ADR, and it is leading over the occupancy fall. About 55% of respondents still list that, our high budget priority for the next 3 months is travel. There's still an inspiration and that hope, right? I think spring and summer for sure, based on based on weather and the flexibility of travel for families has always been an opportunity, to really just influence someone to say, hey, this is the time to do it versus, other times where, for the holidays, you have to make more financial commitments to, gifts or hosting. Maybe this is kind of the time for you to travel and get that wellness. Something that's interesting too for months of expected leisure trips. So, we are looking at, May, June, and July having, that steady growth of people looking or tentatively planning trip. So again, I think that's a good opportunity. I know that you guys, based on time entry, have seen a lull during the July to September months, which is why we're looking at, a campaign that will hopefully influence people to come to Moab based on obviously the benefits of the summer, whether that's the water activities, the events, all the things that Moab has to offer. And so then we are able to kind of ask specific questions, nationally for travel destinations. Because one of the things that we struggled with, over the last couple of years is understanding, okay, is someone looking for a beach vacation or a national park, vacation? What type of vacation destinations are they looking at? Are they looking at Disney World? Where are we in that competitive set? And so the next couple of slides are kind of looking at that question of preferred travel destinations. So when you compare the entire sample of responses, and again, we can kind of share what those destinations look like, because some of them are cities, some of them are actual places like Disney World, right? And so we can kind of share that sample of responses so you guys can get that contextual alignment. But when you compare the entire sample of responses, Utah is in the 39th position for most desired destination domestically in the next 12 months. I have to say during COVID, they were like top 15 because we knew that national parks and road trips were definitely an opportunity for people to kind of feel comfortable around, not crowds and getting that fresh air and things like that. When we look at, and we have that focus on survey responses, though, from just the West, Utah moves up significantly to the 19th position. So again, the first one was national. Then we're able to segment into kind of Western states that are more familiar with Utah. Obviously, we know that Moab's top, markets are Salt Lake and Denver. So Utah moves up to the 19th position for the next 12 months. Even further, when they adjusted the language on this question and asked which domestic destinations are the top of your bucket list, Utah is 19th nationally. So again, Utah is that kind of bucket list destination, those national parks of, I really want to do that in my lifetime. When you also adjust the language on this question for demographic purposes, and you ask which destination domestically to boomers, Utah also jumps up to the 12th position nationally. And so I think those two questions are a little bit related, right? Where you're looking at your bucket list opportunities when you have more of that freedom to kind of check off those things on your bucket list. Again, we also want to understand where national parks or different kind of visitation for monuments or things like that historically. In the past 2 years, like I've said, so this question is, in the past 2 years, I have traveled specifically to visit a national park or a monument. And this is interesting because you see that millennials really took advantage of the last couple of years to do kind of off the beaten path or bucket list, outdoor type of travel versus what they might have already done in the past. And then the last kind of data point that we pulled, how does all of this, develop into our strategy for Moab and taking into effect what we're seeing currently for Moab's booking window, right? Because we saw, throughout all of this different kind of economic and health implications, how, the window has kind of retracted and has kind of done some wild things. So currently what we're seeing is that in January, kind of the booking window, so from booking to arrival in January, we were seeing about 62 days. In February, about 56 days, and now in March, about 45 days. And so we've seen that this kind of window has shrunk kind of year over year seasonally, right? Because I think people are looking forward to kind of that travel in either spring or that summer vacation. Currently in April, we're still seeing about a 50-day window. So we're not saying that, hey, when we come back in April, we're going to see 31 days and it's going to keep on shrinking. But just so you guys know, we are seeing kind of this trend that the closer that we're getting to maybe their travel, their booking, and starting to have that research. Any questions on that data before I kind of dive into, okay, how we take this in and make it actionable for the kind of the summer campaign that we're gonna go over? Any kind of questions? And again, if I can't answer anything, or if there's questions that you guys are curious about, I can kind of relay that to the team and see if we can get that information. All set to continue?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you think that the question about whether or not people have traveled specifically to visit a national park captures, seems like a lot of people visit Moab for the parks, but also for our public lands and the activities there. So do you think that is a good question to capture both those populations, and is it worth differentiating them?
So differentiating between national parks and what?
Other public lands and the recreation available there.
Yeah, so we can see if so with Destination Analyst, and I believe with Skiff, we're able to customize some questions. I know that we do that for our ski audience. And so I'm curious if they go that granular to that point, because I think that they really like to group kind of historical monuments and national parks. But let's see if there's a difference between the public land. I'll have to see if they get that granular. A great question.
Anyone else have a question?
Okay. So again, with that, when we left last time, we were talking about kind of, the summer campaign, what we want to highlight, things like that. And so what we've done so far is go into, I'm going to share kind of this document, which is a strategy, and then we'll go into the flow chart. And so again, what we're working with here, right, is a media budget of around 100K. The timeline that we're looking to influence is May through August. Again, we're trying to push that summertime bookings and activities where we're seeing that kind of slow window according to the time entry data. So really trying to influence, obviously immediately hearing what you guys are hearing with the slow start. Again, we do still have our time entry campaign just about to really ramp up. And so we'll kind of show that on the flow chart where we'll have, a continuation of the Moab message. It's just we're shifting, strategies kind of every few months based on the data and obviously the impact that you guys bring. So some of the content and creative kind of ideas that we heard from you guys is obviously focusing on the summer events, the downtown arts and culture, the restaurants, maybe highlighting some dark skies and water-based recreation. So when we look at kind of the audiences to speak to, we always really like to have real-time travel intenders. So this is kind of a line item, whether it's with a TripAdvisor or a programmatic partner, where if someone is looking at similar destinations or Utah content nationally, we want to target those people and get Moab in front of them. And so this allows us to kind of hit people that are outside of our regional focus, but still are considering kind of Utah or similar national park destinations. Well, we want to be part of that kind of consideration set. So a couple of years ago, I believe at this point, Adam Whalen deployed a Qualtrics study to really understand how we want to segment out kind of the Moab audiences. And one of them that we've been actively communicating with is kind of this activity-driven planner, right? And so this is one of the core target markets Again, this bucket includes families, which is, I think, going to be a strong component for the summer, or friends and in large groups. And this is an audience that tends to be kind of within that millennial range, 25 to 44. And they really love all the activities that Moab has. So whether it's mountain biking, rock climbing, you kind of name it. I think the water activities would fall under here. We want to continue to speak to these audiences. The other audience that we sometimes, come in depending on the season is this shoulder season empty nesters audience. Now, this is where we've really identified audiences that tend to be older, right? That are reporting to stay longer and spend more in a destination, which is obviously every destination's dream. And furthermore, this is someone who does travel more in the shoulder seasons. And really do not put a harsh impact on the environment, right? And so just considering some of the data that we're seeing, we want to make sure that our household income and our demographic age parameters are a little bit more fluid, because we want to include the Gen X and boomers kind of seeing the data that we just presented. And so again, we kind of have 2 or 3 audiences going here, which we always do for that real-time summer travelers, anyone kind of looking at, close destinations. We want to try to competitively conquest. We want to target, the tried and true audience that comes in the summer that has that flexibility, families, larger groups. But we also want to include those older audiences that might not have those kind of restraints from kind of the negative implications of the economy that we just discussed. When we're looking at this budget and seasonality and travel trends as well, we are recommending to speak to our drive regional markets. Again, the rationale behind that is obviously looking at, the cost of flying and then maybe renting a car. We obviously see that national parks and Utah as a destination ranking goes way up higher to Western states. And so we're trying to kind of look at the best opportunity to convince folks to spend a 3-day weekend or come midweek. And so we are recommending kind of our drive markets that we've spoke to in the fall. Again, if we had a little bit more money, we would include maybe those other markets that we do see good success with, whether it's LA, Chicago, or Texas cities, as you saw on the gas prices map, that Texas obviously is a little bit more blue. So would that make sense? Again, I think they would still fly. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging this budget to not be too thin, that we're really targeting the right people in the right places for Moab this summer. When it comes to kind of our channels, we do want to continue to have obviously multiple channels at once. That's kind of the best scenario, so that hopefully someone might see a display banner and also read an article. The 2 channels that we're recommending is programmatic display. This is with a proven tourism partner. So we always try to test a lot of different opportunities in the space. Sojourn has their own exchange that has a lot of hotel bookings and flight information. And so they're leveraging that in real time. And so just based on our fly market performance, other local tourism experience, Sojourn really continues to be the top partner that drives hotel bookings and visitation. And so we want to lean in on that proven partner. Again, Mark and the team, we're starting to kind of bring in, from a creative perspective, all of the different assets that you guys have. And so that's the next step if this is approved, right, is kind of looking at, okay, how many concepts do we want for our display? Do we want to highlight, say, water activities here, dark skies here, and something else here? That'll be kind of the continuation of this program. But the other channel that we're recommending, just talking obviously with you guys last month and looking at a further way of owning a narrative. So display is great, but there's not a lot you can say, within a CTA. But that's why when you're deploying display, it's really important on the audience and the right state of mind, so that they see that it resonates and they take an action. We also know that, a tourism destination might need a little bit more, information that's actionable, that's influential, that's inspirational. And so again, we also want to highlight a lot of different things, I think, for this campaign, right? We want to look at summer activities, maybe events, maybe a little bit more of an inspirational opportunity. And so native really allows us to do that. And so when we talk about programmatic native, what we mean is that we would look at, 3 or 4 landing pages or existing blog articles that we might want to edit or maybe create if we don't find anything that fits, which I don't think is the case because there's so much great content. Just maybe more updating it to more actionable insights, right? Whether it's, the water recreation, that we have really high water and that means that you're going to have this experience, things like that. And so basically we would kind of look at 3 or 4 different articles on the blog or just creating different landing pages. And we programmatically target those audiences in those markets with these native units that they click on, and then they read all the content on Discover Moab. So they're getting that interaction, a little bit longer of a story. Even some of these URLs that I just looked at that we've used in the past, or that I think that could align with some updates, have video embedded. And have these beautiful images and actionable maps, right? And so to me, it's just a better opportunity to weigh out kind of this display that's targeting people that are really in the right state of mind, coupling that with a little bit more of a longer story to tell. And again, our attribution tracking will obviously be Discover Moab website, but we'll be using Adara Impact to tie both of these partners back to hotel revenue and ROI and visitation. And we'll also be looking at, their hotel booking patterns as well. So what that translates into when we look at a visual, again, this is the top part here is our time entry that is already live. So just so you guys can see a full visual of the Moab messaging that we'll have, throughout the summer months. We have PPC live through September. So anyone looking at specific arches or national park searches, we will be able to control that narrative, telling them about the time entry situation. We do have a strong OTA presence that's going through May, a little bit of paid social as well. And then this is the campaign that I was just discussing to really stimulate summer visitation. We're looking at our programmatic partner to be live kind of early May all the way through August. Again, when we're thinking about that booking window, whether it's 30 days to 50 days, this kind of 4-month flight allows us to influence, every kind of month's booking window. Storagize, that is our native partner's name. And we want to heavy up that presence a little bit earlier, so June and July, so that they have kind of that actionable information that makes them feel positive about making Moab their destination. And so from a full kind of bird's view, we have some really strong strategies from March, through September. But this is the campaign that I just went over, looking at about a 4-month flight here with the markets and audiences that I discussed. So really wanting to kind of get your feedback on, if we feel like the markets are correct. Obviously, the next step would be kind of that creative outlook, looking at, what we want to highlight as those activities or those events. I know that, I know kind of what we don't want to highlight, but, any kind of feedback or questions would be great. And August, obviously, you ask as well, or lead the conversation.
Internally, we took a look at this and feel good about where this stands, and we'll develop the creative and make sure that everybody has input on that. We are running a little behind schedule here as well. But yeah, is there any other questions?
What is our goal?
So I think I would say the goal of this is to stimulate visitation between, July 4th and Labor Day. That's really lagged over the last 2 years.
All visitation specific, is it more esoteric? Curious, just if we don't know if we're on target, if we don't know where we're going. So do we want everybody? Do we want only elevated markets? Do we want families? Do we want?
Do you want to highlight the target markets again?
Sure.
Audiences?
So that's a great question. So again, we're pulling from kind of the So when we figure out our audiences, we're pulling from kind of the studies that we've done in the past that are the ones that stay longer and spend more. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are not sending just everyone that spends, only one night. That doesn't really help the hotels, right? We want to make sure that we're sending the right people that aren't going off the trails or abusing the sites. That's always going to be our underlying hope. So when we're talking about kind of the audiences that we've identified, again, within the day and age that we live in now, knowing how economic impacts everyone, we are looking at kind of real-time people who are ready to look at summer vacations and make a decision. We also are looking at kind of that activity-driven planner. Again, that includes families and larger groups. Again, these are people who are driven by kind of that 3-day, activity-based type of trip. And then we also want to include that older audiences that does, spend more, stays longer, maybe travels during the week to avoid kind of the weekend chaos. And these are the ones who really do disperse and go off the beaten path and have a minimum impact on the environment. So we're really this goal is really obviously sending a good amount of people to Moab, but hopefully they're the right audience that spends more, stays longer, and does not, impede on the environment. When it comes to the markets of focus, again, even though what we're seeing is obviously, the main market, Salt Lake, not coming down as much because of the ski, hopefully when with the summer changes in the spring, right, they will get sick of that beautiful white snow and they will want to come down to Moab. And so we are seeing, even so in Q1, Salt Lake's your number one market, number 2 is Denver. And so we don't want to say, hey, we've always been curious about, Chicago, let's put all of our eggs in that basket. We want to make sure that, we're getting the right people here that are familiar with Utah and Moab, which we saw in some of the data that I went over. So that's how we kind of got into our drive markets. Now, if there's kind of pushback on, well, Phoenix, why would they come here, or Vegas? That's a great dialogue. Obviously with Arizona, it's also hot as hell in the summer. So I think that we do see, which has been, the Office of Tourism kind of pause. We have seen a lot of Arizona folks come here in the summer, but that's where we've derived, which audiences, so the who, from where, and obviously open to more information. The messaging is what we're on to next. And so I think, Mark, we're going to continue with that umbrella, the nature's masterpiece, but swaying in the right kind of imagery and having that CTA be more specific to this campaign.
Awesome.
I have a quick question. You went over Sovereign and Story Guys. Have you used those platforms before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you used them with any Moab campaigns?
Yes.
Or is this kind of a new thing? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So Sojourn is the partner that we use for Fly and Drive. And that's why I refer to, they were like the top performer for hotel bookings. We've also tested them at the state level as well. And Story Guys, similar to that as well. We've tested them. We haven't done native advertising for Moab in a couple of years, just because of, we just haven't done that. I think that this is a really good place to do that, because it's just owning a little bit more of that narrative and having people, obviously go to your website, but controlling which pages that they go to, and having more of that longer conversation about events or activities or the why. But yeah, both of those partners are proven for Moab and other tourism destinations.
Great. Anyone else have a question?
I've got one
I was going to
question.
say, oh, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
I was just going to say, and follow up in August, I'll follow up with you tomorrow with you and your team to talk about those articles and so forth, because we just want that content in there that will inspire people to get to know more and inspire them to come and take action and book and so forth. And so that's what we're talking with our team members today. And so that's what Hannah had outlined, those 4 or 5 articles or so that are on your site now that we think could be good, but maybe updated. But I'd like to talk to you about the performance of those and see sort of if they're worth updating and utilizing again. But I'll be in touch with that. But we've got some really good opportunities with the content that's before us.
So that was actually gonna be one of my questions, was with those articles, is there already, or is there an opportunity to include like itineraries as such? I know that when I go and book a trip for my family, I'm looking for someone who's already done the trip and is gonna tell me exactly, and like, here's the picture, and this is how long it's. So I'm
Yes.
just curious if that's included.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, itineraries are one of the content kind of frameworks that really work in obviously tourism, right? And so I think in the past, we've done even like a 3-day itinerary, but that was for shoulder season. And so that is something that I think one of the articles that we talked about was Moab in every season, because we updated that for the food and travel magazine. But that led me to, I think that we can find maybe 3 or 4 existing pieces of content, but an itinerary that brings in everything for the summer is definitely one of our recommendations. Because to your point, people look at 40 to 50 websites all the time. They want someone who's already done that legwork where they can like either print it out or use that to then do other research. So that's a great recommendation. Any other questions? Sorry to take so much time.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I'll condense my bit here. Basically, I've been working very closely with Adam Whalen, who's Love's head of data kind of research and data science department. And he's basically put together a good, better, best scenario in terms of how we could structure all of the various components that we need, whether it's a data input, a dashboard, or otherwise. And so he sent that over to me. I was going to go over that, but I think that's maybe too in the weeds for the rest of today. But that's part of why I went to the DMOS Tech Summit with some of these vendors and to connect with Adam on that. And so I feel very good about all of those options. And so we will bring that back we're continuing to work to onboard as much as we can, as quick as we can. For the simple stuff that's across the board for every option or that we already have contracts with. And I think we'll probably bring that back when we consider kind of the 2023 budget amendment. Does that sound good? Any questions on that? Okay.
Good.
All right.
You're
You
up
guys.
next. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. No pressure. Well, I have a hard stop at 4:45. I'll try to get done quicker if I can. Go to here. Okay, so I want to quickly start. I don't know if I'm sharing my screen actually.
Like a chat.
That might be. That's just Alex saying he's here, or I voting on the minutes. Okay. Okay, so there's a lot of parallel processes that we're kind of going through right now. I just wanted to visualize them for myself and everybody else really quickly before we dive too deeply into the planning bit. Make sure I'm actually sharing this screen. I am. Okay. So I tried to do a little Gantt chart here. I'm try to not overload here, but basically there's kind of 3 kind of travel council related planning budget focused things. There is the kind of post HB 416 budget kind of amendment that is going to have to happen in the next 2 months before the end of June. That's going to include the diversification side and the tourism side. And that'll, change what we started that conversation at the last meeting, or maybe even 2 meetings ago. And then there is the co-op program and the timeline for that. And then there's kind of planning for 2024. So let's take a look at those super quick, just so we know kind of timeline what these are looking like. So at the next meeting, we're going to bring a draft kind of changed budget for 2023 to the board, and so that's going to incorporate the conversations we had last time, staff recommendations, any changes that have happened since then for consideration. And then in June, or at no later than June, the county commission will approve those changes. Because it's not a top line change, my understanding is that from a process perspective, it doesn't have to go through a hearing or anything like that, because the total amount of dollars is changing, it's just reallocating within the budget. This is an error, so ignore that. And then for the 2023 co-op planning process, last year, they haven't released this yet, but last year, planning took place in May when the application was released. And so in tandem with planning for basically all of these 3 planning things the next month, there's going to be a decent amount of thinking through what do we want the rest of 2023 to look like, what do we want next year to look like, and what do we want the club to look like. At the June meeting will be when the travel council reviews it and ratifies a letter of support, and when the actual application is due. There's an in-person interview in July, and then awards are announced in August, and we have 2 years to implement starting in September. The 2 biggest bucket items that I think that could go to is helping to fund kind of some of our top line inspirational marketing, or helping to fund some of the development of the big kind of responsible recreation education platform and related marketing. Either way, I think we want both those projects to happen. It's maybe what is more likely to be funded from this grant versus from our own dollars, the main decision from my perspective there. And then for the 2024 budget process, it's going to start here in August is when we're moving it a little earlier. Every year it gets compressed on the back end. So I'm not sure exactly what my internal deadlines are, but I'm assuming by the end of September, I'll have to have my initial budget request due. We'll do the final version of the letter with the prioritized list of expenditures in October. County will adopt that budget in November. So there's kind of 3 different processes, but it's kind of a lot of the same planning. And so with that, I'll highlight, okay, well, we have this body and its planning related focus. But we're finally kind of have the green light to move forward with some of these more public strategic planning process. Right. So we've been talking about this for a long time. How do we have these conversations about, well, I guess I'll talk about that in a second, but generally the timeline is that we're drafting and issuing an RFP for planning this month, reviewing bids and picking a vendor next month and approving that contract in June. And then that planning process hopefully takes place to the end of the year, beginning of next year, and then kind of launch that at next year's Grand Summit.
Is this for travel council strategic planning for economic development as a whole?
So let me go to the next slide for my presentation, because that's where that talks. I just wanted to get timing around there. Some parallel projects is that we also in tandem with, okay, we've gotten in this planning process, get everybody on the same page about where we want to go moving forward. So let's update branding. What does that billboard look like on the highway? What does our messaging look like? So it all has the same look to it. And then at that point, we'll talk about this at the next meeting, but basically developing some of that educational framework so that we can tie our inspirational messaging and our educational messaging together. One of the big things I've been hearing from Jonathan at Love is that empirically, those messaging actually works better together rather than separated or than isolated on its own. So that's a lot of dates and numbers, but I just want to keep everybody apprised at a high level. But diving into the actual planning process, we're going to work with the Economic Development Advisory Board. Kind of obviously they have a certain purview and the Travel Council has a certain purview, but together all focusing on being a part of a community conversation to identify those collective economic development priorities. So why do some kind of a public planning process? At a high level, I think we all feel this. Our community is divided and distracted by one kind of overpowering economic development question. Should we promote more tourism or should we decrease promotion, meaning for less tourism? That divide is distracting ourselves, I think, in a lot of ways, and it really prevents collectively from digging into the nuanced weeds of defining a holistic vision for the future of the economy, compromising and aligning on common sense solutions. And sorry, my slides aren't working how I want them to. The thought is if we can find alignment on a handful of priorities, we can push forward, aggressively pursue resources to fund politically durable programs and make progress. Gotta work on my slide game. So then the question is below that, how do we actually do that? So these are some core driving questions. So, how do we create a holistic vision, set of priorities, and develop programs that drive economic opportunities to support all of our local businesses, workforce, and residents? So kind of that umbrella view that doesn't, divide tourism from non-tourism. But then specifically, how do we manage and sustain a thriving tourism ecosystem that drives economic benefit to our local community while managing the real environmental and community quality of life impacts? Third, how do we diversify our economy so that it provides more year-round, full-time benefited job opportunities that are non-tethered to the visitation curve? And lastly, and I think most importantly, how can we work together as a community of individuals with different perspectives to achieve that goal in a collaborative and mutually respectful fashion? And so what does that actually mean in terms of like big umbrella activities? So I think that for me, my perspective on this is that number one, continue to manage our tourism economy so that it drives economic benefit to our community. Two, work towards smart mitigation of the environmental and community quality of life costs associated with the growth of our tourism economy, recognizing that those are both key priorities and are not, necessarily at odds with each other as goals. Increase the amount of year-round full-time benefit jobs that are untethered from the visitation curve, and invest in economic infrastructure that supports all local businesses, workforce, and residents. So where that is kind of my high level, observations of everything that I've been here for 2 years-ish now, and understanding what are the conversations, what matters. And so the intention of, to answer your question, Lacey, is that it's going to touch on everything, right? I think trying to dissolve some of those silos between tourism and non-tourism, recognizing that they all work in the same ecosystem altogether. So this started with the Economic Development Advisory Board. We had basically the same presentation. We did some reflection. We'll see how much time we have here to get that done with, but really thinking about, shifting, making sure that the boards that we have that are really talented, smart people on the Travel Council Board and the Economic Development Board, getting involved in driving a lot of these conversations and getting hands-on while still having kind of a consultant role to facilitate, ensure that all of the notes are taken from all those meetings, any kind of hands-on capacity work that needs to be done happens, and that the outcome is a strong roadmap that there is at least some consensus on moving forward for all the things that our department works on, whether it is economic diversification, tourism, all the rest. So where I was hoping to go with this was just an opportunity for a little bit of reflection on this, and then I think go over that. Yeah,
I'll be a bad person.
be a bad person.
Instead of us doing, you did this with the Economic Development Board, now you're doing it with us. Why don't you instead get a committee from us, a committee from them, and they can get together and do this? Just to me, this seems like this is the same stuff we go through over and over and over with love every meeting.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the messaging we're doing now. To me, it seems like this is every meeting. And then, if you've already done this with the Economic Development Group, and now you want to do it again with us, obviously you're going to get some different ideas, but why not do a subcommittee from each group? They can get together, get everything, do a draft, and then bring it and present it to us instead of us sitting here for the next however long, going over and over and over and over the same thing and over and over.
Yeah.
It seems like most of this is economic development based and not tourism based. And we are the tourism board. That's where, when I started reading through this, at first I went, okay, maybe, yeah, it is the same economic development office, but most of the stuff in this was economic development based, not tourism based. It's almost like you want the one question, do we want to not advertise and get tourism back in here? And if that's our goal here, then why are we here?
Can you restate the last piece?
When you said on one of your questions was, do we want to, as far as advertising and stuff, do we want to continue advertising
Our tourism.
our tourism? Or do we want to cut down on tourism advertising? And if we're cutting down on tourism advertising, then we don't need this board.
Well, and I think that brings up the exact point of the planning process, which is that question is a not useful question. And when what ends up being the conversation between the travel council board and the county commission is arguing about one number, which is how much like promotional dollars are there in the budget versus other projects. And the intention of having a planning process is to recognize collectively and have all the voices be participating, recognizing that we absolutely must ensure that we're having our golden use of the tourism economy healthy, figuring out what healthy means, right? In a larger conversation, figuring out what is unhealthy. And tying that conversation to the rest of our economic drivers in the community and figure out, what's been brought up during economic diversification in the context of what does that mean? What is our plan? Are we aligned on that so that we can move forward on that, on those things?
I mean, by law, we have to spend money, a certain amount of money on advertising.
Correct.
So why would that?
Well, but
question
that's not
even-
exactly totally true. 'Cause it's not just advertising, right? So it's keeping the tourism ecosystem healthy. And if the question, so I'm hearing two pieces. If your question is more of a process question, how much should we actually talk about this today versus in some other format? I can answer that separately. If the question is more like, what is the point of the entire process?
It's actually a little of both.
Yeah, okay. So let me answer
A
the first
little
one.
of both.
Let me answer the first one first.
Okay.
First one is, this has been circling the drain for about a year, pretty much since I started, right? Identified that strategic plan is important. I don't have a document that has been circulated with the community that's a result of public buy-in, that has been ratified by the county commission, that I can refer to during the budget process to say, remember, our strategic planning includes X, Y, Z, which includes both promotion and encouraging inspirational educational messaging and making sure that we're managing our resources, right? It becomes a legislation on every single decision, whether we're putting a billboard up or investing in some data resources. And so there is not a strategic plan that people have bought into, that there's been a public process for, that the county commission has kind of put their stamp on.
And I remember us talking earlier in different meetings about what I was under the assumption as we were going to actually have a strategic planning meeting.
Yeah.
Not part of our regular board meeting.
Yeah.
Where we're trying to jam this all in this much time.
Yeah. So process question.
Yeah.
Basically, my understanding was this was kind of on the back burner, working on other projects. Didn't really have a mandate internally to go move forward, even though this was budgeted to go put this RFP out into the world and get some planners and contractors involved. But that has changed with the fact that our understanding of how the economic diversification dollars can be spent before they cannot be basically spent on anything after the June.
Right.
Even if we've collected it beforehand or whatever, that's the conservative interpretation of statute. So on that side of things, there's 100,000 that's been dedicated to strategic planning. And so what I'm being asked to do is, if we're going to do that, we need to launch it right now, because we need to get put an RFP out there. It's going to take a month to get actual good responses, and then a month from there to vet, put the contracts together. And then also on this side, the travel council board has recommended and is in the budget is $50,000 for the tourism component of it. And so, initially 2 years ago, we were wrestling with, should this be a separate process? Should there be like an economic diversification process? Should there be a tourism process? And ultimately, decided that they really need to be together. Because if they're not together, then it continues this like antagonism in terms of the policy conversation. So basically, I kind of got it was a wait and hurry up kind of scenario. So in order to actually get this timeline so that we can pay someone to start doing this work by the end of June, we need to issue the RFP this week.
So,
If that makes sense.
so we need to decide what we want done so that the RFP can go out. That's what I'm not understanding. We
Yeah.
are hiring a group to do this for us, but yet you want us to do it. That's what I don't
Yeah,
understand.
okay, good point. Okay, so RFP, you're right, the scope of work, what do we want them to do? Right, but we're also involved in that, because one way to do this is we say, here's the scope of work, go do everything for us. And we're just gonna report from the sidelines. And I think that, and I think what I've heard is people want to be involved in this process. We want to ensure that this process looks like what we want it to look like. All the rest. So I think in an ideal world, there would be more conversation, a steering committee would be established so that we can put this together. I mean, it's kind of been circling the drain, this particular RFP for 2 years now, so it's gotten a lot of input. I think it's pretty much ready. Basically, I wanted to make sure that the travel council board was given the heads up that we want to post this as soon as possible and make sure that there was any input on that. So basically,
I mean, I agree, it needs to be done together.
yeah.
And that's why I said, do a subcommittee from each group to get together and then make those decisions on what we want done.
Yeah, so the
That
hurry
way
up,
both are there. I mean, right now, you've already talked to them. We have no idea what you did, what you said to them unless we go into the public records and read it all.
Sure.
So.
yeah, I think that
just my-
would have been ideal.
That's just my bad.
I think we thought we had more time.
It's not bad, it's
Between,
process,
between,
it's process. What's the process? Let's be efficient with process.
What's compromise? I think that, like, how would you feel about kind of going back in public record, looking at that, and then everyone reporting back by tomorrow, just with like 2, 3.
well, I mean,
don't have
Forrest can also tell us what happened. He's the chair of the Economic Development Board. He was there the whole last time, been helping us with that process. If you want
I heard before us.
to.
That was always my wake-up call in grade school.
Yeah.
Answer the question for us, but what can I do to help?
Yeah, maybe give us an update as to what happened at the last Economic Development Board meeting and how these two processes can kind of tie together.
The purpose of the conversation that I think August was suggesting for this group today was a conversation at the Economic Development Advisory Board meeting about the definition of economic development and the definition of diversification, because a lot of people hear those terms and there's no, certainly in this community, no shared definition of what those are. And so I think that's one of the reasons why the Advisory Board for Economic Development went through this exercise. And what we gathered was a variety of descriptions of what economic development to that group means, and how diversification is an element of that process. Economic development isn't a thing you do, it's a process you undertake to strengthen the community, to strengthen the businesses in the community so that they can employ people, meet their stakeholder or shareholder requirements. And in this community, especially, do that in the context of maintaining a quality of life that people aspire to have in the community they call home. The diversification definitions, or what people interpreted as diversification, focused on how do we build on our tourism economy? How do we add opportunities? How do we reduce constraints to other businesses so that businesses that don't specifically and solely depend on the tourist dollar can find opportunities for growth and for working together in a variety of ways. I felt that was for the advisory board a good start. so that at least among the group, we had a sense of what other people's definitions for those two terms were. But the diversification part starts with the fact that we have a tourism-based economy. Our employment in Moab especially is either tourism-related or tourism-dependent and public sector. Those are the two industries that most people and most residents are parts of. And so the reason for moving towards a joint or an overarching strategy that recognizes the core of the tourism community and looks at ways to build around it is the reason we decided to focus on a planning process that incorporated all of the elements. And because you look around the table here and the table around the Economic Development Advisory Board, we've got extraordinary local talent that we haven't asked to participate in some of these conversations. And I think to August's point, what happens then is it becomes sort of an either or with binary choices rather than getting down to not just the issue of tourism, but the interests of all the people who are affected by it. And that can be done in these roundtables and small group conversations that can be coordinated by a project manager, but the actual conversations can occur and be driven by members of the two advisory boards and other people, other expertise that can come to us from outside, whether it's your communications firm or folks from the state, and use the talent we have locally to develop a plan that may not be perfect, but at least people in the community understand we've made the effort to be inclusive, that we're not just talking at each other, but talking with each other, and synthesizing those results to come up with some near-term goals, which are near-term is 3 to 5 years, and longer-term goals in terms of what we want the economy of this region to look like. And so,
I understand all of that.
okay,
That's part of what I was saying is, why are we doing these separate, your meeting and our meeting? Why aren't we getting together and doing it then?
Well, I think the goal was that our next meeting would be kind of a joint, or do some kind of a joint subcommittee, but basically between that meeting and this meeting, my kind of marching orders changed. So I was asked, this needs to go out as soon as possible. We need to update this so that it reflects, obviously, it was written before, the previous version was written before HB 416, so I have to make those changes, I tried to make it up to date and capture all of the things that we want into it, but it's also not like exactly what's going to happen. This is like the request, and then we'll have all the various vendors that we've been working with to respond with how would they facilitate these dialogues, how would they connect these dots, how are you going to manage having a tourism expertise and kind of this general economic development expertise in a larger facilitation process. So I think for me, we just need, we needed both boards to take a look at it. The time that things change in between has to go out as soon as possible. Try to add to the agenda this week, and maybe it's not how I would have liked it to go, but wanting to continue it to be a collaborative process for sure. So I think I guess my real question then, is there anything that's totally wrong that needs to be changed in the context of
In the scope of work stuff?
yeah.
My question is this, there appears, I've seen it, there's a 2030 plan, right? For Moab.
There's a general plan for the county.
So has the general populace been asked, what do you want? And is that in recorded? I've seen binders like this thick with stuff. Has anyone condensed that? Do we know what the general populace wants?
Right.
And then why do we not just work towards that?
Yeah.
It seems to me like we're redoing everything again. Like if it's been done, let's build on that.
Yeah.
And almost questioning why the RFP, because the RFP seems designed to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
And it should be done.
Right.
So why?
So the general planning process the county went through was under a previous planning director. And the way that he set it up was basically the general planning process identified, and maybe Mary can speak to this if I'm missing anything, but identified all of the kind of verticals for planning, transportation planning. I don't know what are the other ones, housing plan, all this different stuff that needs its own subplan. And basically wrote what I would call a draft document. And in an internal context, put together all of the bits and pieces that need to be incorporated. And the process that kicked off was, okay, now we've identified these gaps. One of those gaps being, economic development planning. So that process didn't include a huge community outreach piece. That was kind of setting the skeleton and then kicking off the rest of the process. That was my understanding of how that happened. That was 2 years ago, 1 year ago now. The city did a different process with their visioning, right, which had a much more, let's start with talking to the community and figure out what these pillars are and then turn that into internal strategy and action. So those are two different processes. So I guess I would say that hasn't happened in this context for these particular topics. And so the way
Specifically the economic diversity.
Yeah.
The focus, you're talking about when John was here.
Yeah,
Okay, the focus a lot on that was land use. There was a lot on land use and where we want this and where we want that. And it was, we had 3 or 4 open public meetings where we invited the public, you came to some, and got feedback and such. And now I don't know where the economic planning department is. They want to do neighborhood meetings.
well, they're updating the future land use plan. But to answer your question, my take, and I don't know if other coordinators disagree, is that there hasn't been a neutral, non-political facilitated dialogue about these topics. There's been a lot of very politically charged conversations in very narrow issue areas under things that affect all of it.
So one thing that I would suggest is really building on what the city did, because they had a really intense and inclusive process
Yeah.
of kind of neutralizing all of that already. And so I would say if it's still needed, it would just be like to really look at that, which is, it's public information, right? Or
Well,
how much of it is public information, I
Oh,
guess.
It's all public.
Yeah.
And there was the consultant hosted a website that
Right,
has the various reports, and one of the pillars was sustainable tourism.
Mhm.
So, and economic development. So I think this plan is a great follow-up to that. I mean, the visioning was very high level,
right.
and so identified like.
Which
generally-
I noticed that it was, in here for sure, but, and then I just had one clarifying question as far as the money, the timing needs to hurry. I understand that the money is coming from the diversification pot, which
Part of it.
part of it is coming from the diversification pot. But I guess once that switches over, it's still all within, I don't see, I guess, why the scope would change that much. It might, I can see how possibly the diversification piece in particular, but economic development and tourism are all really one thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I see the urgency if we don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Totally.
Because state statute wise, it could be used right now all for tourism. It's
Yep.
just something our county has decided budget wise. And so if there's concerns and issues about even on your end of, we don't have time to do this right and efficiently so that we don't have to do another consultant and another study yet again next year or in 2 years, then I don't know if I understand the urgency. I would say do it right.
Yeah, and I don't
Once
think,
and for
I
all.
don't think this is doing it wrong. I think
Yeah.
this is the right way. I think the scope of work does touch on everything that I think everybody's been looking for. There's still room for kind of massaging that during the bid process and award process, and you can change the scope if you've got a really good bidder and they want to do something slightly different. So to me, I just want to, if everything's in there that needs to happen, I'm okay with that. The main piece, I think, and then from a trying to not make this too big of a community input thing where it like becomes like unwieldy potentially. I think a lot of the focus is really doing, subject matter expert roundtables, where we're really diving into the core elements of what's going on in a targeted way. And then to your question of, the timing and the urgency, yes, we can, if it was exclusively a sustainable tourism plan and it didn't touch on anything outside of like tourism's purview. And we felt, and the county felt comfortable in saying, okay, anything that's touching this general economic development could be funded from TRT. There's
I
not,
don't think our lawyer, I've talked to Steve.
there's not comfort right now from what the state auditor is telling us, from what the county attorney is interpreting it, to spend what post July 1st TRT money on kind of like non-tourism ecosystem stuff, right? So from the perspective of the economic diversification questions that focus on kind of a holistic view, it gives us much better legislative, or, from a legislative risk or judicial risk standpoint to get that paid out before June. The way I would structure it is use the money that we have from the economic diversification side, that is budgeted, which is $100,000, as basically the first check. And then the $50,000 that is on the tourism side, you hold as the make sure you actually do what we're asking of you, piece of it to cover the tourism side. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess for this board and this board's time, that would be the piece that we would spend the time on, right?
Yeah.
So,
And again, it's not asking the board to do the work today.
right.
Right. It's simply basically a solicitation process. And if the scope of work has I would say 80 to 90% accuracy about what we want in there, there's room during the bid process, there's room during the contract process to clarify what that scope of work looks like. We just want to make sure that this basically signals to a potential consultant, project manager, facilitator type, what am I getting myself into? Should I be bidding on this? Do I have the skills to work on this?
Well,
And I think,
and also, like you said, during the bidding process, they might have ideas that
Right.
we didn't even think about.
totally, and that happens. So I think I feel pretty okay with this and everything. We just wanted to bring it to the
I was
board.
under the impression we were gonna be going through all
No,
this.
No,
And you
we're not.
wanted answers. That's
not-
kind of what the email kind of said. We wanted all the answers to all this stuff. that
No,
we
no, no,
had.
no. Does that capture the scope of work of what we want? The process will look like as it happens over the next year.
So I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I think the number one question that I would like answered for not only for this board and for the economic development department, but also like the county commission, the city, all of it is just kind of like Lori said, like, what is our goal? Like,
Yes.
what do we?
Yeah.
What do we want? And if we want more tourism, how much more? Like, what is a sustainable growth? If we want less tourism, how much more? Give me a percentage.
Yeah.
So that we can equate that in all of our planning. And then number two, and I say it all the time because it's my soapbox, but I'm gonna still say it, is like, we need better data to plan. Like, that should be our number one, very first step. Spend our money, get all of the answers.
I thought we were doing it.
That
I think
we
we're
want.
doing it with love.
Yeah, and it should.
That's what
be-
I was-
but
that's what I
mean,
kinda
it
cut
should
short,
be
really.
during this process, because without that, I've been here 5 years in the same conversation, but we don't have any more answers, maybe less answers than we used to have, so like, we just can't plan that way. And so we're gonna continue to hire consultants and strategic planning and whatever until the day we die, unless we get
I
that
think that
data.
is, I think what Lori's been saying and what Lacey's been saying is, we need to know what the end goal is. We need to have a goal. We can't just,
And if that
we
can
can't just
come
keep
out of this
advertising, and we
process.
can't just keep having Love do all this stuff without knowing what the goal is.
And to augment what she's talking about, how do we pay for it? We always have to think about bringing tourism in with making it so that our county and our city bills are paid through those sources until we come up with the other sources. And we don't just need more, we need to find the way that the bills are getting paid. And that, to me, is an overarching part of the goal. The goal of tourism, of course, is sustainable and share this planet with the people. I'm an import, so many of us weren't born here. I can't just close the doors and say nobody else gets to come because I'm here now. But we have to find a way to make it so that property taxes are not increasing. We can use that source to make our community stronger. And I feel like that has to be part of our goal and planning.
Yeah, so I think for me, my last point, I'll defer you, and then we do have to get the special events. That if this process doesn't get a clear identification of objectives, goals, contexts, resources, all of the rest of everything that you've said, then it hasn't worked. Though everything that you're saying is what I hope the outcome of this process is. Because as you said, if we don't have goals, if we don't have objectives, what are we aiming for? And that's been, I think, my hardest thing is I've, basically navigating through the average sum of 100 conversations that I have in a year, right? Okay, this is my guardrail here, this is my guardrail here, this is my guardrail here. So hoping to basically make that all explicit, put that in a clear mandate process and make sure that people feel that they've been a part of that process and have been able to put input. And that includes everybody on this board. Everybody on this board. So I think that this process will answer those questions. And that is, I think, very much my goal for doing it in the first place.
I think that several of you asked, what's the goal? And I think the reality is, as Brian said, we have to find out from the community. And in this case, as opposed to Moab Tomorrow Together, at a specific level, at a level of detail that is actionable for the people involved in businesses and for the entities that are trying to support and help businesses move forward, like the SBDC, Economic Development Department, and each of us in our board roles and responsibilities. And the way to do that is to ask people. And that's what these roundtables and small group conversations are about, is getting that immediate feedback beyond the sort of yelling at each other through the newspaper or things like that. Just get to the specifics. What can we do near term? What's going to take a long time so that we can actually start working and doing the job rather than talking about what it's going to be.
So there's not necessarily like an action item that we need to move forward on this. It would make, I think, it easier for me if there was a motion that says, the travel council does support moving forward with this. From the perspective, I think that the county is trying to make sure that the travel council board is behind this stuff. And if it's not, then let us know. So anyway, we can move forward with an action or not. Is that any other discussion there?
Can I just have one more question?
Yeah.
So in this RFP, is it that they will take, because I know like Curtis Wells did an economic development plan that was, I know, like pretty sparse and whatnot, but will they take all of that and compile it and just fill in the holes? Like, are we throwing everything out? And
So what I put in there is a comprehensive review of all the past planning efforts.
Okay. For like a certain period of
Basically,
time?
yeah,
Okay.
there's actually a list of documents
Okay.
in the RFP,
Yeah.
but I tried to capture all of the things that have happened up to this point, so that we're capturing all these inputs, and that they're not totally starting from zero, or that we're not starting from zero. So yeah, it'll include planning efforts that have come up to this point.
Maybe my final thought on this.
Yeah,
What someone just said is, let's have some action instead of just keep talking every meeting.
yeah,
Let's do something.
Yeah.
So on that note.
yeah.
I make a motion that we go forward with this RFP process.
Is it a review and approval, or is it just a review?
Well, this would be basically approval of the RFP as written.
Yes, yes. I make a motion that we approve this RFP as written and we move forward with how the county wants us to move forward. Does that work?
Sure.
Let's just get something done.
Do I have a second?
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Rebecca, are you in favor?
Aye, sorry.
All opposed?
I'm gonna abstain. I'm gonna abstain.
I'll stand as well.
Okay, cool. Did you get that?
Sure did.
Okay. Okay. Looking forward.
All right, next up is community event grant and special event grant applications evaluation and funding recommendation. So that was attached in the notes. To get over, did everyone see what the committee proposed? Yes, I have it here. So it was voted on that the Moab free concert series would get 15,000. Thompson May Day celebration would get 2,500. The Grand County Fair would get 12,500. The Winterlude, the Music Festival Winterlude would get 5,000, and the Mental Health and Nature Series would get 5,000. That was a Thompson event, I believe.
Yeah, and the main change here is that the county fair got funded separately. So basically frees up 12,500 to be allocated. However, so this is kind of the
Do you
opportunity.
have to allocate it?
No, you don't have to.
Say,
You could just say, don't spend it.
don't spend it, that's my, I say don't spend it.
Okay, well, make a motion.
So, well, can I, well, you can, or I can discuss later.
Go ahead.
So I know that, one of the reasons, like if you'll see on one of those, Mary and I had both objected to the final. And that reason was because there was one event held out at Red Cliffs that seemed fairly in line with the other events that we were awarding, and that was it's a community concert series. So I guess I don't remember how much they were requesting, to be honest. It's been a long time
It
since we
should be
had
in
this
here.
meeting. But I
That's right here.
guess if there is some.
Are you talking about this one here?
If we could.
No, that one was, it wasn't the special event, it was the community.
For communities.
It wasn't the trail.
Yeah.
The trail we felt was too much of a.
There it
Well,
is.
there's one on the special events that is live at Red Cliff Series.
Right.
That's
and-
probably the one.
And community stage.
Yeah.
And I think the reason
Oh, right here.
we talked about that was because we felt the stage was infrastructure. But I mean, if it was for the
For
actual
the,
this
right,
series, you know, and not the stage.
gotcha.
then I think that's what we were talking about.
Well, I thought we were talking about the trail.
No, they had two.
Yeah,
There was two that were.
There was two.
I know the trail, we really felt that was infrastructure, but I can't remember the stage, just because it's so long.
Basically, this wasn't even a series. It's a stage. They want to build a stage to feature
Oh.
music, film and theater. We do that.
Ben, you want to say something?
Yeah, so the hang up with that, that's the small meeting minutes generated, was there wasn't so much concern about the stage as much as that there might not be a economic multiplier effect if something is just held at Red Cliffs, and you know, if there are vendors or not vendors and who benefits from that. We have the unique opportunity of having Brian here at the table who can probably elaborate on the event, but at the same time, I think there's also a conflict of interest at play, so I'll let you all navigate how you want to discuss that. But there is an opportunity to, you know, learn more if you want.
Can we make it just, because our time is about now. Is this something that we have to make a decision on? Can we approve everything? And
Except
then
for the
hold
12,000.
12,000 and then discuss
Come back to
that
that.
further?
Yeah.
Sure.
Next meeting when we have the time to really delve into.
Yeah, and that would allow the county commission to proceed with the rest of the grants, and
Yeah.
then we could come back to the last 12.5 later.
That's what I would recommend. We just don't have the time.
Okay,
I make a motion that we approve and send to the county commission the recommendations on the special event grants and the community event grants. And we hold back the 12.5 for further discussion on
Next meeting.
the
and
next meeting.
so to clarify, that's the 12.5 that was originally awarded to the Grand County Fair.
Right.
Okay,
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Rebecca? Alex?
You know what you can do that makes it
He
easier?
typed it. He said I.
Okay, is just say, does anyone oppose? Okay. And then you know if they don't oppose, then they agree.
Nice.
Or they have to say abstain. You could also say that, does anybody abstain? But it
Anyone
makes it
abstain?
easier.
All right,
Any opposed?
any opposed?
I don't think we got Alex's vote.
Yeah, he
did.
typed it.
We type I, okay, great.
All right.
Did you get that? Did you get that? Count? Okay.
Yeah, everyone's with it.
And there's not any other
Well, we can,
There's not
there's
consideration.
technically the last one.
considerations of any future agenda items, so I believe that we have.
I think we already went through that
Yeah.
on your list.
Okay.
I would like to just make one statement
Sure.
before we go. I want to thank Ben. I really enjoyed working with you. I think you've been an incredible asset for both this board and economic development, and I wish you luck in the future and whatever you endeavor, and keep coming back and saying hi.
Thanks, Mary. And thank you all. It's been a pleasure to work with you all over the past 2 years, and I look forward to seeing what you all work on. Thank you.
We'll miss you.
Yeah, I mean, this is shocking to me too.
Oh, he's resigned.
He's resigned.
Well, not yet. Put in his notice.
But
Okay.
he put his notice. He won't be here.
Ben.
His last
This
day
is
the
my last travel council advisory board meeting, yes,
Last day will be.
as a staff member.
I
wanna be-
oppose. I oppose. You can't leave.
Seconds to that, I oppose it.
Yeah.
Then, there's no objection, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everyone. I have a
We
one.
should give a few.
Ben.
lots of Ben.